Hi and welcome to this short video on good code, bad code. Here's a great example I ran in today. Even non-coders are going to enjoy this one because it's really easy to understand. It's a simple process of tracking whether somebody on your website has clicked on something so that we can track them to see what kind of behavior is going on. So I was looking through the code that has just been changed, and at first sight it seems like there's a good change here. We're basically saying, should we be tracking this click? And we can see at line 136 the change is quite simple. It's basically saying, well, if we're already tracking this, we don't need to run the logic to track it again. If it's already handled, then just return. Don't carry on doing anything. So that's quite a good change, and you see that fairly often in code. It's called an early return, or a guard is another name for it. Now in the old code, which was in the red, you can see that the check was the other way around, saying if we should track this, then let's track it. But now we have to do a bunch of extra stuff. As you can see here, the developer has added some extra things that we need to now do. So instead of putting all of that extra logic up here inside this little routine, he's implemented good practice, early return, or a guard. In other words, guard against running all of this extra logic. So he's reversed it from if we should track, or if we shouldn't track. And if we shouldn't track, we return. But if we should track, we carry on and we implement the old logic, which was in there, and all of this new logic. Great, brilliant. That's what you like to see. It makes more sense. The code is easier to understand. And I was about to approve it, but then something caught my eye. Let me reveal what's really going on here. Let me scroll up a little bit. This code actually starts at line 130. Analytics track field handler. Okay, so it's tracking, it's a handler to track a click on a field. And when we track something, it gets stored in what we call an analytics cache. So we're just caching the things that we're already tracking. That makes sense. And that's a way we can ensure that we don't track things twice, etc., and other benefits. So, okay, I say, well, that makes sense. But then I start to read through the logic and try to figure out what actually are we trying to do here. So at line 1, and this is old code, right? So this has been here a long time. So the new developer who's made this change has done a classic mistake of just seeing that what he needed to do, which was, okay, I need to add some new logic, so let's put in this new logic, and then, okay, let's just reverse this and change and put in a guard and just return. Great, but he hasn't looked up higher, and I nearly fell in the same trap. It was only when I wondered about this variable to see where it came from, and I backtracked, and you will see we look into the cache for that particular field and extract it. So now we have that field, and now we ask, is that field being tracked? Oh, it is being tracked. Okay, so let's set a variable called isTracked to true if it is being tracked. And now we ask ourselves, okay, well, if it is all being tracked, should we now track it again? So we set another variable to say, yes, well, we should track it. But actually, if you look closely, there's an exclamation mark, which actually reverses this. That's a Boolean check. So we're saying, actually, if it's not currently being tracked, then we should track it. Okay. And the old code then said, okay, if we should track it, then let's do so. Then now we've got this new line which reverses the logic again. Okay, so this has been set to should track, and now we're saying, oh, but if we shouldn't track it, return. Can you see how convoluted and confusing that logic is to follow? And these variables that we're setting here are never used again down in this function. So they're only being set 1, 2, 3 variables just to decide whether we should track something that's already been tracked or not, and then return or not. Absolutely insane. This can be easily fixed. So there's the bad code. So let's paste in what should actually be happening. We look into the cache for the field that we want and we extract it into an object with that value, whether it's being tracked or not. And if it's not in the cache, this will just return an empty object. So either we have it in the cache or we have an empty object. And if we have it, we return. In other words, if it's already tracked, just return. We don't need to carry on and do the rest of the logic. No need for any old-fashioned is variables or should variables. 2 lines, and it's much simpler and intuitive and easy to understand. I come across this stuff every day. Drives me crazy. Good code, bad code. I think this is the beginning of a new series for me. Stay tuned.